Hey, stop for a second, because what I'm about to share with you might be the most important 5 minutes of health information you'll hear all year. I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying it because most doctors, including many oncologists, still aren't telling their patients over 50 about this. Not because they don't know, but because a 15-minute appointment isn't enough time to explain it. And let's be honest, the healthcare system doesn't make money keeping you healthy. It makes money treating you. I'm Dr. Ethan Palmer, cardiothoracic surgeon, 15 years in the operating room. And you might be wondering, why is a heart surgeon talking about cancer? Because there's something silently destroying my patients' arteries. And that same thing is feeding cancer cells in their bodies without them even knowing it. I'm going to tell you what it is in this video and what I found, confirmed by a landmark 2022 study from the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, following over 116,000 adults for 28 years, shows that a specific set of daily habits can reduce overall cancer risk by up to 61% in people over 50. 61%? That's not a supplement, not chemotherapy. That's lifestyle. And today I'm going to break down the 6 most powerful components of that habit, ranked from helpful to absolutely life-changing, so that by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to start doing tomorrow morning. Now, I want to tease something for you, because number 1 on this list is something 90% of people over 60 are doing completely wrong, and the science suggests that fixing it could cut your cancer risk nearly in half. So don't skip ahead. Watch this to the end, because the order matters. Each habit builds on the last. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Leave a comment below telling me your age. And this, has a doctor ever sat down and talked to you about cancer prevention? Not detection, prevention. I read every comment on this channel, and your answers genuinely shape what I cover next. Now let's start with number 6. Number 6 is something almost everyone dismisses as too simple to be serious, and that dismissal may be costing people their lives. I'm talking about cold water hydration. Specifically, drinking 16 to 20 ounces of cold or room temperature filtered water first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before you look at your phone. Now, before you roll your eyes, hear me out, because the mechanism behind this is fascinating and directly relevant to aging biology. After 55, something called interoceptive thirst sensitivity begins to decline. That's just a medical way of saying your brain gets worse at telling you when you're thirsty. A 2019 study from the University of Barcelona found that adults over 60 are chronically operating at 8 to 12% below optimal cellular hydration without ever feeling thirsty. Now, why does that matter for cancer? Because your lymphatic system, think of it like the body's internal garbage truck, collecting cellular waste and damaged DNA fragments, runs almost entirely on water. When you're dehydrated, that garbage truck slows down. Damaged cells accumulate, inflammation rises, and chronic low-grade inflammation is now understood to be one of the primary drivers of cancer initiation, particularly colorectal, bladder, and kidney cancers. The Harvard Nurses' Health Study found that women who drank more than 5 glasses of water daily had a 45% lower risk of colon cancer compared to those who drank 2 or fewer. 45% for something that costs nothing. For aging bodies specifically, hydration also supports something researchers call autophagy, your cell's self-cleaning process. Think of autophagy like a quality control inspector inside each cell, breaking down damaged components before they can mutate. After 65, autophagy efficiency drops by about 30%, but proper hydration has been shown to partially restore that function. Here's how to do it right. Keep a 20-ounce glass of filtered water on your nightstand. The moment your feet hit the floor, drink it. All of it, before anything else. Add a squeeze of fresh lemon if you like, because the D-limonene in lemon peel has its own anti-tumor properties we'll touch on later. And here's your synergy tip for this habit. Pair your morning hydration with 10 minutes of light movement, even just walking around the house, because movement stimulates lymphatic flow and compounds the cellular cleansing effect by up to 40%, according to research from the Karolinska Institute in Sweden. I had a patient, Harold, 69 years old, from Dallas, Texas. He came to me for a cardiovascular issue, but what caught my attention was his abnormally high inflammatory markers. When I asked about his water intake, he admitted that some days he only drank 2 to 3 glasses, mostly coffee. We didn't change anything else except adding about 20 ounces of water first thing in the morning and another glass before each meal. After 60 days, his CRP levels, a key inflammation marker, dropped 22%. He told me, I didn't think something that simple could make a difference. It can, and it did. That's number 6, and it's the foundation. But if you're drinking enough water and still putting this into your body every day, you're sabotaging all your efforts. Let's talk about number 5. Number 5 is something you're putting into your body every single day, maybe multiple times a day, without realizing what it's doing to you at the cellular level. I'm talking about sugar, specifically refined sugar and added sugar. Now, this stuff isn't labeled as a carcinogen. You won't see a warning on a soda can. But the way it works, the way it affects your body, is exactly how a carcinogen works. Let me explain. When you eat sugar, your pancreas releases insulin to move that sugar from your blood into your cells. That's normal. The problem is when you eat sugar constantly, day after day, year after year, your body has to pump out insulin constantly. And here's what most people don't know. Insulin isn't just a blood sugar hormone. Insulin is also a powerful growth signal. It tells cells grow, multiply. Normal cells hear that signal, and cancer cells, they hear it even louder. A study from Harvard Medical School following over 10,000 women for 12 years found that those with chronically high insulin levels had nearly double the risk of breast cancer compared to those with normal insulin levels. But the story doesn't stop there. When insulin is high, it drags along another hormone called IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor. Think of IGF-1 like fertilizer for weeds in your garden. It doesn't create the weeds, but if there's a weed seed sitting in the soil, a precancerous cell waiting somewhere, IGF-1 gives it exactly what it needs to explode. A 2020 study from Oxford University, analyzing data from over 400,000 people, found that high IGF-1 levels were linked to a 35% increase in colorectal cancer risk and a 25% increase in prostate cancer risk. And there's a third mechanism. Refined sugar causes inflammation. Not the kind of inflammation you can see or feel, but chronic, low-grade, silent inflammation. The kind you live with for years without ever knowing it. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video. There's something silently destroying my patients' arteries and feeding cancer cells in their bodies. This is it, chronic inflammation. And sugar is one of the leading causes. Now, here's the part that's especially critical for people over 50. After 50, your body's ability to process sugar declines significantly. Your cells become less sensitive to insulin, a condition called insulin resistance. That means the same amount of sugar you ate at 30 now triggers a much stronger insulin response. Your body is aging, but your sugar intake isn't going down. That's a recipe for disaster. Here's how to do it right. Limit added sugar to under 25 grams per day. Read food labels. Sugar hides everywhere. In sauces, in bread, in things you'd never expect. Replace fruit juice with whole fruit because the fiber in whole fruit slows sugar absorption and prevents insulin spikes. And here's your synergy tip. If you're craving something sweet, reach for a small handful of berries, blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. They have natural sugar, but also contain polyphenols, compounds that actually improve insulin sensitivity instead of making it worse. You've cut off the enemy's supply line, but there's a food that can go even further. It doesn't just stop feeding the bad cells. It actively builds an army to protect you from within. That's number 4. Number 4 is a food that's been used by the world's longest living communities for thousands of years, dismissed by Western medicine for decades, and is now the subject of over 1,200 studies on cancer prevention. Fermented foods. Specifically, naturally fermented options like plain yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, and miso. In 2021, a groundbreaking study from Stanford University School of Medicine, published in the journal Cell, found that adults who consumed high-fiber, high-fermented food diets showed dramatically increased microbiome diversity and a measurable decrease in 19 specific inflammatory proteins, several of which are directly linked to cancer progression. But here's what makes fermented foods especially critical for people over 50. After 60, something called intestinal permeability increases. Your gut lining literally becomes more porous, a condition sometimes called leaky gut. This allows bacterial toxins called lipopolysaccharides to enter your bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammation. That kind of inflammation acts like fertilizer for precancerous cells. Think of your gut lining like a castle wall. When you're young, the wall is solid, no gaps. As you age, cracks start to appear. The enemy starts getting through. Fermented foods help patch those cracks. The mechanism works through something called short-chain fatty acids, particularly butyrate. Butyrate is produced when beneficial gut bacteria ferment fiber. And here's the fascinating part. Butyrate doesn't just nourish the gut lining. It also signals precancerous cells in the colon to self-destruct, a process called apoptosis. In other words, it tells the troublemakers to leave before they can cause any damage. Think of butyrate like a quiet security guard. He doesn't make a scene, doesn't get into fights. He just calmly escorts the troublemakers out the door before any harm is done. A 2023 meta-analysis from Cambridge University, reviewing 24 studies with over 1.9 million participants, found that people who consume fermented foods daily had a 34% lower risk of colorectal cancer compared to those who rarely or never ate them. 34% from yogurt and sauerkraut. And remember the section on sugar in number 5? Here's the crucial connection. Sugar feeds the bad bacteria in your gut. Fermented foods feed the good bacteria. When you cut sugar and add fermented foods, you're completely shifting the balance of power in your gut microbiome. Here's how to do it right. Aim for 1 to 2 servings of naturally fermented food per day, not the pasteurized kind, because the heating process kills the live cultures you need. Look for labels that say live and active cultures, a cup of kefir in the morning, a small portion of sauerkraut with lunch, a bowl of miso soup at dinner. Simple as that. And here's your synergy tip. Pair fermented foods with prebiotic-rich foods. Garlic, onions, leeks, or slightly green bananas. Prebiotics are food for the beneficial bacteria that fermented foods introduce. When you feed them the right stuff, they multiply, and the effect compounds dramatically. The first 4 habits are about what you put into your body, but the next habit is about what you do with your body. And the science behind it is truly extraordinary. That's number 3. Number 3 is something you've almost certainly heard of, but I guarantee you haven't heard it explained like this. And you're almost certainly not doing it in a way that actually triggers its cancer preventative effects. Walking. But not just any walking. It's what researchers call metabolic walking. And the difference between regular strolling and metabolic walking could be the difference between feeding cancer and starving it. Here's the science. Your body runs on 2 primary fuel systems, glucose and oxygen. Cancer cells, due to a quirk in their metabolism first described by biochemist Otto Warburg in 1931 and confirmed by hundreds of subsequent studies, are almost exclusively dependent on glucose. They're actually quite poor at using oxygen for energy. You've already cut off the supply from your meals. Now, metabolic walking burns off the remaining glucose in your blood. This means when you engage in sustained, moderate-intensity physical activity, the kind that elevates your heart rate to 55 to 70% of your maximum, you do 2 remarkable things simultaneously. 1. You deplete circulating glucose, starving cancer cells of their preferred fuel. 2. You flood your tissues with oxygenated blood, creating an environment that is actively hostile to cancer cell survival. A 2020 meta-analysis from the American Cancer Society, reviewing data from 1.4 million adults, found that regular moderate physical activity was associated with a 42% reduction in colon cancer risk, a 38% reduction in breast cancer risk, and a 27% reduction in lung cancer risk, even in non-smokers. These are extraordinary numbers for something that requires no prescription. But here's where the aging-specific biology becomes critical. After 65, your mitochondria, the tiny power generators inside your cells, decline in both number and efficiency by up to 35%. Mitochondrial dysfunction is now understood to be a key driver of both aging and cancer progression. Sustained metabolic walking is one of the only interventions proven to stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning it literally signals your body to create new, healthy mitochondria. Think of it like getting a brand new fleet of power generators installed in every cell. The cells are aging, but they're equipped with a fresh energy source. I want to tell you about Walter, 71 years old, from Seattle, Washington, a retired architect. He came to me 3 years ago after a scare, a precancerous polyp found during a routine colonoscopy. He was terrified, and he had every reason to be. Before that, Walter barely exercised. Desk job is his whole life. Retirement meant books and TV. His longest walk each day was from the couch to the refrigerator. We started one single change: morning walks. 35 minutes, 5 days a week. Fast enough that talking felt slightly difficult, but not so fast he was gasping, before breakfast. He combined this with some dietary changes: less sugar, more greens. 2 years later, he went back for a follow-up colonoscopy. Clean, completely clean. His gastroenterologist specifically noted his dramatically improved inflammatory markers and called his recovery remarkable. Walter told me, "Walking feels like medicine." He was right. It literally is. Here's how to do it right. Metabolic walking means 30 to 45 minutes of continuous walking at a pace where you can still hold a conversation, but would find it slightly difficult to sing. This needs to happen at least 5 days per week, and ideally in the morning, before your first meal, because fasted movement significantly amplifies the glucose-depleting effect. Here's your synergy tip. Pair your morning walk with natural sunlight exposure. Morning sunlight regulates your circadian rhythm, which controls your immune surveillance system, your body's cancer detection machinery. The combination is far more powerful than either habit alone. And if you're finding this valuable, this is a good moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. I release evidence-based health content for people over 50 every single week, and your support is what makes that possible. Number 3 is remarkable, but the next 2 habits are where things get truly revolutionary. Number 2, involves a compound found in a specific vegetable, and the research on how it fights cancer after 50 is one of the most impressive things I've seen in 15 years of practice. Let's talk about number 2. Number 2 is a compound, actually a family of compounds, found in a very specific category of vegetables, and the research on its cancer-fighting mechanism in adults over 50 is some of the most compelling science I've ever encountered. Sulforaphane, the powerful bioactive compound found in cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, and most potently, broccoli sprouts. Here's why this matters so profoundly for aging biology. In 2018, researchers at Johns Hopkins University, where much of the foundational sulforaphane research was done, published findings showing that sulforaphane activates a master genetic switch called NRF2. Think of NRF2 like the head of security for your DNA. When activated, it triggers over 200 protective genes simultaneously. Genes involved in detoxification, antioxidant defense, and critically, the repair of damaged DNA before it can mutate into cancer. And here's the aging-specific tragedy that makes this so urgent. NRF2 activity declines by approximately 40% between the ages of 50 and 70. Your DNA repair system is quietly shutting down. Every day, your cells accumulate small amounts of damage. When you're young, NRF2 fixes them. As you age, more and more damage slips through. Sulforaphane essentially wakes NRF2 back up. It switches the dormant defense system back on. A landmark study from the University of Illinois found that regular consumption of sulforaphane-rich foods was associated with a 52% reduction in bladder cancer risk, a 41% reduction in prostate cancer incidence, and significant reductions in breast and lung cancer markers. But perhaps most remarkably, a study from Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center found that sulforaphane actually targets cancer stem cells, the particularly dangerous cells that conventional chemotherapy often fails to eliminate and that are responsible for cancer recurrence. Think of cancer stem cells as the generals of an army. You can wipe out all the soldiers, but if the generals survive, they'll rebuild the army. That's why cancer comes back. Sulforaphane goes straight for the generals. Now here's the preparation detail that most people get completely wrong. Sulforaphane isn't actually present in broccoli in its active form. It's created through a chemical reaction when you chew or chop the vegetable, activating an enzyme called myrosinase. But here's the critical issue. Cooking above 140 degrees Fahrenheit destroys myrosinase. That means fully cooked broccoli delivers very little active sulforaphane. You could be eating broccoli every day thinking you're protecting yourself, but if you're boiling it, you're losing almost all the benefit. The optimal preparation method is to chop or lightly crush your broccoli or sprouts and let it sit for 40 minutes before eating or lightly steaming. This allows the myrosinase reaction to complete. Then, steam for no more than 3 to 4 minutes. Raw broccoli sprouts require no cooking and deliver up to 50 times more sulforaphane per gram than mature broccoli. Aim for half a cup of raw broccoli sprouts daily or 1 full cup of properly prepared broccoli. And here's your synergy tip. This one is crucial. Pair your cruciferous vegetables with a small amount of raw mustard seed powder or raw radish. Both are independently rich in active myrosinase. Adding them to cooked cruciferous vegetables effectively restores the enzyme activity that cooking destroyed, increasing sulforaphane bioavailability by up to 4-fold, according to research from the Institute of Food Research in Norwich. Sprinkle a little mustard powder on your steamed broccoli. Add a few slices of raw radish on the side. Small adjustments, big difference. Number 2 is powerful, but what I'm about to tell you for number 1, the single most impactful daily habit for cancer prevention after 50, this is what the research has been quietly building toward, and it's what most preventive health conversations never reach. Remember when I said 90% of people over 60 are doing this completely wrong? This is it. Number 1, sleep. But not sleep the way you think of it. It's what researchers call oncological sleep architecture. The specific quality and timing of sleep that activates your body's most powerful anti-cancer system. And the data on what happens to cancer risk when this system is disrupted is, frankly, terrifying. Here's the mechanism. During deep slow-wave sleep, stage 3 and stage 4, your brain activates the glymphatic system. This is a recently discovered waste clearance network, first described by researchers at the University of Rochester in 2013. It uses cerebrospinal fluid to literally flush toxic proteins and cellular debris from your brain and nervous system. Think of it like a power wash cycle that only runs at night when the factory is closed. During the day, your brain is busy producing. At night, the cleaning crew comes in, but the cancer connection goes far deeper than brain health. During those same deep sleep phases, your body produces its highest concentrations of melatonin. Melatonin isn't just a sleep hormone. It's also one of the most powerful endogenous antioxidants known to science. A comprehensive review published in the journal Cancer Research in 2021 found that melatonin directly inhibits tumor angiogenesis. That means it blocks cancers from building the new blood vessels they need to grow. Melatonin also stimulates natural killer cells, the frontline soldiers of your immune system, whose specific job is to identify and destroy cancer cells before they can establish themselves. And here's the devastating aging statistic. Melatonin production declines by up to 70% between the ages of 40 and 70. Most people over 65 produce almost negligible amounts during sleep. Your most powerful internal anti-cancer mechanism is running at a fraction of its capacity. A 2019 study from the International Agency for Research on Cancer classified night shift work, which chronically disrupts sleep architecture, as a probable human carcinogen, not a risk factor, a carcinogen. The same category as certain pesticides and industrial chemicals. That's how serious disrupted sleep is for cancer risk. I had a patient, Dorothy, 69 years old, from Tampa, Florida. She was a retired nurse, 30 years of night shifts. When she came to me for a cardiovascular issue, she was only sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night and waking up frequently. Her immune panel showed severely suppressed natural killer cell activity. Her protective army was dozing off when it should have been standing guard. We worked together on what I call a sleep recalibration protocol. Fixed bedtime at 10 p.m., complete darkness, room temperature lowered to 67 degrees Fahrenheit, all screens off 90 minutes before bed, and a small amount of tart cherry juice at 8 p.m. for its natural melatonin precursors. Within 6 weeks, her sleep duration reached 7.5 hours consistently. At her 3-month follow-up, her natural killer cell count had increased by 47%. Her oncologist was astonished. She told me she hadn't slept that well since her 40s. The research is clear. Adults over 60 who consistently sleep 7 to 8.5 hours per night in proper, dark, cool environments have cancer mortality rates up to 48% lower than those sleeping under 6 hours, according to a 20-year cohort study from the University of California, San Diego. This is not a minor variable. This is the master switch. To optimize your sleep for cancer protection, do these things without negotiation. Set a consistent bedtime and wake time, even on weekends. Your circadian rhythm doesn't take days off. Make your room completely dark. Even small amounts of light suppress melatonin production. Cool your room to 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit and avoid eating within 3 hours of sleep, because digestion competes with the cellular repair work your body needs to prioritize overnight. Here's your synergy tip for sleep. Combine your sleep optimization with daily morning sunlight exposure from habit number 3. Morning light anchors your circadian rhythm and directly increases your evening melatonin output. These two habits, working together, create a biological environment in which cancer struggles to take root. Here's what I want you to remember as we wrap up. 6 habits. Drink water the moment you wake up. Kickstart your lymphatic system, your body's garbage truck. Cut sugar. Stop pumping fertilizer into the cancer seeds waiting to grow. Fermented foods build an army of bacteria to protect you from within. Metabolic walking, burn off cancer cells' fuel and install new power generators in every cell. Sulforaphane from cruciferous vegetables. Wake up your sleeping DNA repair system and go straight for the generals of the cancer army. And sleep, the master switch, where your body produces melatonin and deploys its natural killer cell army. These aren't exotic protocols. These are the conditions your biology was designed to thrive in. They cost almost nothing. They require no prescription. And every single morning, you get a fresh opportunity to begin. I want to be direct with you about something. You are not too old for prevention. The science doesn't have an age limit. Whether you're 55 or 85, whether you've had a cancer scare or never given it a thought, your body retains a remarkable capacity to heal, to defend, and to regenerate when you give it what it needs. Your independence, your quality of life, your ability to be present for the people you love, those are worth 30 minutes of walking, a glass of water, and a consistent bedtime. Don't let anyone tell you it's too late. The research says otherwise, and so do I. Your next appointment is not where you're going to hear this. Your doctor has a list of symptoms to address. They have prescriptions to write. No one has time to sit down and explain why your sleep is determining whether your natural killer cells are doing their job. That's why I made this video. If this video helped you, please subscribe to this channel and share it with someone you care about. Every week we go this deep into the science of aging well, and your support is what makes this work possible. Now I want to hear from you. Of these 6 habits, which one are you starting first? And what's been your biggest barrier? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one.